I have to say that's one of the most embarrassing introductions I've ever had. Let me reframe. Before I go any further, I'm not one of the most important. I'm simply the really, 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 really old one. I'm delighted to be here today to share some of my very humble thoughts about what we're dealing with as marketing guys in the world you've all been discussing for the last 48 hours or so. The world was very, very much simpler when I started 37 years ago. Back then, you basically had, as a brand manager, the job of getting out one ad a year. If you were lucky, you also had a say in what it looked like, rather than your marketing director. You had to have good relationships with your head of key account negotiation to make sure that you had 2 or 3 price promotions in a year. And you practiced your skills at managing agencies by having a couple of on-pack promotions as well for good measure. Things have changed beyond all recognition. And one of the key things that changed, apart from the fact that the end of the 15% commission means that you don't any longer go to one single stop shop to get all those services, is that as people have been talking about far more eloquently and knowledgeably than I, that there's just a blizzard of complexity, more touch points, more retailers, more choice, more agencies, and significantly more noise, all of which I think leads us as a profession of marketing people, and certainly the oldest ones amongst us, in danger of becoming hugely snow-blind. This is a map that I'm told is already out of date about all the potential touch points that you could use to get to a consumer. In the world that I talked about in 1976, when I kicked off, about 5 of those existed. The same things happened at the retail end. Fewer customers, but with significantly more variety and choice. I estimate that my first call as a salesman on an international stores in Watford, that would probably be about 7 international stores worth of stock in that room, and about 10 times the number of SKUs that they could possibly handle at that time. And all of that is matched by an even more bewildering landscape to negotiate on the agency front. 10 times more agency types than there were back in 1976. And the divisions between them have become totally blurred, not least because they all claim to do everything that you want. So confronted with this complexity, what on earth is one to do? Well, I think at an obvious level, 2 things. First of all, engage, jump in, learn by doing rather than trying to learn through theory, but also retreat and think about some of the basics as deeply as you can. This, I think, is a truth that was true when I started and remains true now. Marketing is that function of the organization that can keep in constant touch with the organization's consumers, read their needs, develop products that meet those needs, and build a program of communication to express the organization stroke the brand's purpose. Written in 1965 by Kotler and Levy. True then, and I think true now. So I think that's the first basic to keep in mind. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We aren't supposed to be trendy. We aren't supposed to be anything other than effective in that very simple statement of mission as a marketing person. But I think that requires us to get back to the basics of what is the agency, in this context, the agency-client relationship. And I think there's one fundamental requirement that an agency should require or inspire in its clients, and that is to reuse the old McCann saying of a truth well told, a truth worth telling. I think this is a core point that I took from a book written not so long ago, 5 years I believe, Baked In, by Alex Borguski and John Windsor. And I think if you just read the first 20 pages of that book, you get the thesis. Marketing success is when the product has a truth the consumer wants, and when the way that that is brought to the consumer elevates and magnifies that truth rather than going off in a different direction. This is incredibly difficult to do, in my view, particularly in industries in FMCG, where there's a huge amount of parity product and therefore parity marketing. It is enormously difficult, and it's very difficult in our business. Beer business is characterized by very, very similar liquids around the world, and normally very, very similar positioning platforms and creative ideas to bring them to life. We do have exceptions, and ones that we're extremely proud of. Are there any Australians in the audience? Watcha. you want to come up here and tell this story? Okay. This is Victoria Bitter. Victoria Bitter is a brand owned by Carlton United Breweries, formerly owned by Foster's. And it broke every rule in the book in Australia, an extremely regional market in terms of beer businesses and their footprint. It was the first national brand in Australia, and it got there through a very, very simple idea. Reward for hard work. Working men need a reward, and VB's the beer that'll do it there because, to quote an advertising campaign that ran since the 1970s, a hard-earned thirst deserves a big cold beer, and the best cold beer's Vic. However, for various reasons before we acquired the Foster's business, that truth had been alarmingly watered down. Most fundamentally, Foster's had taken alcohol out of the beer. It was historically a 4.9 ABV brand. The rest of the market was around about 4.5, 4.6. And the product truth that made it a big cold beer was that it was slightly more bitter and it had 0.4 more alcohol. They took the alcohol out. When we got in touch with the brand, when we got the brand, the first thing we did was empower the local team to get back to what the brand was all about. And this meant restoring the liquid back to its original form and also taking a knock. Sorry, could we just go back? So this is the letter written by Ari Mervis, the CEO, to Dear Victoria Bitter Drinkers. And for those of you who can't read it, let me read it out, because it's probably the most important bit of the return campaign. We've heard you, and we're fixing it. A few years ago, we made several changes to the recipe of your favorite beer and altered the brewing process, and we got it wrong. So during the course of next month, look out for the original big cold beer in your local pub and bottle shop. Thank you for your patience. This is some of the response we got to that in Australian media.
Victoria Bitter will return to its full strength and flavour.
Today, the beer gods turn back time. VB is returning to full strength and a traditional look.
Well, one of the best recognised beers in the country is going back to basics.
Australia's biggest brewer says it was a mistake to tinker with the original recipe.
Returning to full strength VB with the old familiar branding.
One small sip for man, one giant drink for mankind.
Good news tonight for anyone with a hard-earned thirst. Victoria Bitter is back to full strength. Is this more exciting than the birth of your children?
Oh, it's up there. It's definitely up there.
Big day. VB is back, and we win a seat on the UN Security Council all on the same day.
For those of you who couldn't hear that properly, the worker on the line was asked how big a day this was, and he said, well, along with the birth of my children, it's up there. And it's a tribute to what brands that really stand for something mean to the consumers who associate with them. We follow that up with a return or a revisit to the old advertising idea, and I'm just going to show you one example of that.
It's a funny thing, sweat. They tell us not to do it. But when you've worked one up, you wear it like a badge. None of that artificial airy-fairy sweat. Real sweat. Sting your eyes sweat. Salty in your mouth sweat. The stuff that gets in your socks. That turns your forearm into a towel. Mixed with a bit of dirt and sawdust. And stuck to your back. Yep, there's nothing wrong with a bit of sweat.
And sales have responded. You can see there that in the last 2 quarters, we've turned around something like 10 years worth of decline, and we're getting the brand back to growth. I think another thing that comes out of that story is that when you stand for something, you normally have a particular person in mind that you want to stand for that thing in their mind, but you actually end up attracting a whole bunch of other people. VB is now being colloquially referred to by college kids as a 49er. American football's big, the San Francisco 49ers, we're back at 4.9, it's a 49er. So the unintended consequences of doing things you believe in. I guess the other side of this, going back to this chart, is that there's a huge difference in the agency landscape. And the days of the one-stop shop, the 15% commission agency are almost certainly gone forever. And I think that puts a huge requirement on the client side that they need to actually be inspiring and requiring full-service teamwork from all the agencies that they bring together. There's a massive challenge, I think, in every marketing organization trying to integrate across all these touch points, and particularly with agencies coming from very, very different perspectives, how you actually get a consistent message that's well-timed and well-considered and well-integrated against your consumer base. We don't have a rigid approach at SABMiller with our agency model. We don't have any global agencies. We have guidelines for local businesses about how they should be remunerating agencies and so forth. But we do have some very strict belief systems which we've tried to encourage through the business about how we think you should be managing your agencies. The first of these is that we insist on there being a thing which we call the creative platform. This is an example for Peroni, which those of you who are English will be familiar with the success of that brand in the UK market. And a creative platform is an attempt to crystallize for all service agencies, all suppliers of creative service to us, as well as the company internally, what it is that this brand stands for. So Peroni, Armani, Parada, Peroni. Peroni Nastro Azzurro is Italian style applied to beer. There's a manifesto here, which those of you with marvelous eyesight will be able to read, but essentially it says, Armani, Elisi, Prada, enduring symbols of Italian style. Italians are immaculate stylists, passionate, they don't talk, they don't walk, they promenade, they don't wear clothes, they model them, they don't just talk, they express. That's why we believe in style. We believe in passion, we believe in quality design in everything we do, inside and out. And every time we present our brand, we present it perfectly, la bella figura. It comes naturally to us. In a company dedicated across most of its global footprint to selling brands that look more like VB, you can imagine that can't, without this, our agencies and our marketing teams in many markets would find themselves a little bit lost as to what we do with it. So that's the first thing, the brand manifesto and the creative platform. The second thing we bring to the party, and we insist on, is what we call integrated activity planning, which is essentially 100% of the direct marketing budget on the table, with the purpose and creative platform for the brand clearly in mind, with consumer, shopper, influence model and learnings, the 360-degree model we talked a little bit about, and the barriers and strategic tasks that need to be undertaken. And typically over an initial 1 or 2 day workshop and then through subsequent work streams, we would bring together all of the agencies, the brand team and the key sales teams to work through at a sort of a, for want of a better phrase, sort of a tissue meeting. What are the ideas and how will they integrate that'll make next year work? We then go through internally something which we call the Tabletop Review. Tabletop Review is sort of the end of this process, but it's essentially selling to senior management throughout the organization the plan that's come up. And the critical test is, are the ideas strong? Do they integrate? Do it make sense? Does it make sense? So if you like, it's a bit like an internal sales conference, a pitch from the brand team on behalf of everyone who's worked on the brand about what we think the brand should be about for the next year. What I'm going to show you next is a little video from Richard, our marketing guy in the UK for Peroni. He's done it to video, but he would have done this at least twice. First to his senior leadership from the region, his managing director, the region managing director, and secondly to his own organization in getting them behind the Peroni plan for actually for this year, I believe.
Welcome to the Peroni Nastro Azzurro Tabletop Review. The environment you're about to experience brings to life the super premium nature of Peroni Nastro Azzurro in the UK. You'll feel the style, you'll feel the passion, and you'll feel the spontaneity that the brand brings to life. So starting here with our goals and tasks, we've outlined everything that we need to achieve for Peroni this year. The plan for 2012 focuses on bringing to life the seasons of Italian style. What I'll take you to next is something that we're really excited about. We are bringing a 2x2 metre cube into the UK. And as people walk up to the cube, it will recognise their gender and it will recognise what they are wearing and then give them a suggestion for the season's accompaniments for them. So how are we taking seasons to the trade? Firstly, through new packaging. Primo packaging cleans up and simplifies the Peroni package. We're delivering seasonal celebrations within stores. This Peroni chiller bag holds 6 bottles of Peroni It's filled with ice and allows people to take their beer to their friends and keep it cold at the same time. Club Peroni is a way of rewarding customers for ordering from us, and here we can see one of the displays that we plan to put into our retail outlets over the summer period. For the first time, we'll have a digital screen on this merchandised unit. From there, I take you to opera. Opera is Italian, it brings to life the seasons, so in the UK we're going to give it a contemporary feel and bring opera to life for our urbanites. Digital is a fantastic outlet for us to recreate the experience, and we can use it for people to engage. Here is our autumn-winter cinema commercial. You will see imagery that brings to life the spontaneity and the passion of the season. We have the right social channels to ensure we are always on. We use advertising through social media and mobile to really engage our audience within the digital channel. My key piece of advice is ensuring that everything ladders right from your IMP to your goals, then to your tasks and to your executions, and ensuring that your executions have KPIs that ladder all the way back up to my goals and to my commercial delivery.
Unfortunately for Richard, the cube didn't work. But that's the point, isn't it? We're all going into uncharted waters. We don't know what will work, and you better have some experimentation out there in your marketing plan so you can learn. So to sum up, I essentially think that with all the complexity as well as engaging, we need to, as marketing guys, go back to basics. We need to remember what it is we're supposed to be doing, and we need to purposefully integrate the marketing effort we've got behind two very simple ideas. In your product, a truth worth telling, and in your agency's full-service teamwork. Thanks for your attention.